And hello, everyone! Albert Odysseys again, and we're continuing with the retrospective, and we're going into the player's side and going over their storylines and things that if they felt like they really enjoyed it, or if they would have wanted to go down some other paths or anything like that. And we'll go from there. We'll start off with. I was gonna roll. I have dice right here.
I'm gonna be mean and ignore this. Austin, did you
One.
expect Glint to change classes?
Oh my
Yeah.
god! I knew this was coming.
That was the biggest character.
It was huge.
No,
I was blindsided by it.
no, I didn't. I didn't know, but like, I absolutely, I don't know. Well, I felt like it was just like the thing to do. It was like Marshall threw this major like, oh, okay, what can you give up? Like, what you have to give something up precious to you in order to get this knowledge. And I'm like, shoot, all right, well, I had to think of like the things that my character cared about, and then I started thinking about, okay, well, what things would the other characters care about and give up? What would Glint think? What would Glint think would happen? And so that's why Glint was like asking y'all questions, because like he was legitimately he was trying to calculate. Okay, and I think it came down to the point. When it came down to the wire, he's like, I mean, Glint had all sorts of issues. One of them just being very, very poor self-esteem. So like he legitimately thought that his dream was not worth as much as everyone else's dreams.
Don't like hearing that. Oh, Kit just jumped on me, clawed me a little bit. Thanks for that.
So there was that element to it. But no, it wasn't planned. But I also thought it was just like, I'm about to make a really, really sad move, and I think this would make a very drastic change for the plot.
Yeah.
So I was like, yes, and what else can I do?
Dang.
I was interested to see what was going to happen with that, and Glint stood up and took one for the team.
One of the single hugest moments in the entire campaign.
Yeah, I went home and talked to my wife about that. And, a lot of times she's like, "Did you have fun with your friends?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course we had fun and everything." But I went home and I was just like, "You will not believe, like, okay, something big happened in the story." And I had to like explain all that to her. So it was a big moment.
Yeah. Are you
I cried a
winning,
little.
son?
I
And
cried.
you turned around and went, no.
I cried. And then I cried from everyone else's reactions. It was really touching.
I still hate Tuscan Grey Quill, even though I think it was mostly Fizz, but I still hate Tuscan because bringing him back is what brought it up.
Yeah.
I feel like Dawn would have forgiven him, but Shane never did. Shane couldn't.
Understandable.
Yeah.
They had to make it a very difficult thing that no Archfey would give up.
Right. And so I think, that was definitely one of the bad days of the 4 bad days Glint had.
I think he acclimated pretty well. I mean, you really swung into the whole paladin thing pretty quickly. So
Yeah.
How many wizard characters do you think have changed classes and become a paladin? Like, how do you get from there to there? That's a big jump.
That is a big jump. Going intelligence to charisma.
I was thinking the classic wizard being, the scrawny boy, and I mean you were a Dexy paladin, but still.
Yeah. I still kept the 8 strength I had.
Yeah, it's hard to go from Harry Potter to Sir Lancelot.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say, as I mentioned before, like I take a lot of pride in the thumbnailing that gets done for Owlbear Odysseys, and I so badly that like the session after that wanted, like, I almost commissioned another piece of art with my own money of Paladin Glint,
Oh.
but it just would have taken too long because you know we do not rush artists, we respect them in this channel. But there was another part of me that was like, we can't do this for all of the players, even though all of the players haven't gone through a huge transition. But so we just made do with what we had. But Paladin was such a huge moment, and it did make, like, any time that we had to use Glint, the rest of the, like, visually, the rest of the campaign made it a little weird.
Yeah, I felt that a little bit, and I was also like, this wasn't planned, so there was no way we would have had art.
And there are no hard feelings at all because it was awesome.
Yeah.
There
Well,
are hard
my favorite
feelings,
things
but
for
it's
me.
all anger at Marshall, not Austin.
There are hard feelings towards Tuscan and Marshall.
Yeah, I really appreciated how Glint was received. Which the original character I had planned for this campaign would not have fit at all.
Oh yeah, that's something worth talking about.
Yeah, I mean, we had a whole, like, I guess sessions, not really a session zero, more of just kind of like a, I hate that I'm gonna say this, but like a vibe check. We wanted to just kind of, before we got all of the like art finalized and whatnot, we just wanted to have like a little non-canon session, just kind of seeing the characters interact. That was when we had our other player that
Yes,
didn't
I was
stick
going to
around
talk about
either.
him.
Yeah, I think it was like a park day or something, right? I remember
Yes, it was
that Dawn was working a stall for the Bocelli Pizzeria.
A pizza stall.
It was like on an island that Beef had swam to.
Yeah,
It was the Fey Court Island.
yeah.
Yeah. I was playing a rat arcane trickster as a rat folk kobold race, but he was a rat, and he just wasn't a good fit.
He was a cool character.
Yeah.
It just the party dynamics would have been interesting.
Yeah, and he would have been a really hard character for me to roleplay as. So
Yeah. And I think there is a lesson in that. I'm always like a huge supporter of in D&D, play the character that you want to play, especially when I'm DMing. It's like I will never exert power over a character or a player's decision making. But I think there is a skill as a player of knowing, is this the right character for this campaign? Are they going to fit in? If it's a comedy session or a comedy campaign, should I be playing a character with 3 pages of traumatic backstory? The answer is no, because Marshall will give it to you in the campaign.
I'll give you trauma. No, don't worry. It will happen.
Right.
That's
like the what's that movie? It's like the it's like where there's 2 worlds and like they go through like the sewer the manhole in the sewers to New York, and it's like a princess fantasy world.
Oh,
Ella Enchanted?
No.
I know which one you're talking
the
about.
Mario movie.
Is it like Amy Adams as the princess?
I think so, but it's like the fairy tale world is cartoon, and then the real world is.
Oh, I know this movie.
They made a sequel to it. It was like it seemed like it's like having to like 2 different worlds like that.
Enchanted.
Yes, Enchanted.
We were close with Ella Enchanted.
Well, isn't her name Ella?
It's Giselle.
Oh,
I was right though that it's Amy Adams. So
yeah,
I was
what is
more
Ella
right.
Enchanted? Oh, Ella Enchanted's the old comedy fantasy.
Yeah, that was Anna Hathaway.
I was thinking Enchanted when I said Ella Enchanted.
While we're on this tangent, I do want to, because he was mentioned, I do want to take a second to talk about our 5th player, because, and hopefully he'll watch this at some point, because we love you, Alec. He had a really fun character that I think would have added some spice to it. There are absolutely, for anyone wondering, there are absolutely no hard feelings. He just had a busy schedule, and it was kind of decided that, you know, he was going to end up missing enough sessions that it would have been really hard to make it work. And I've seen him since the campaign has started. I think Marshall, you have too. And we're still able to have good conversations. He's still a great guy. I wish he would have been able to be involved, but so we did upload his character intro back when the channel launched, and then we kind of took it down once we realized that he wouldn't be there, which means that there are like 7 people in the world who would have seen them, and 5 of them are here. But yeah, there, you know, when there's a certain level of, I guess, like professionalism that you have to take when you're doing a campaign this way instead of just sitting around and having fun. And unfortunately, that just meant that we had to, we had to part ways with Alec. But I would like to believe that we still ended up having fun.
Oh, 100%. And everything was good with Alec. I spoke with him too, like you said, and we're all still great friends.
I, however, have cut ties. He's dead to me. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
You're seeing him in November, Shane.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to act like a child and like have other people like tell him what I'm saying. Like JT, tell Alec that you know. Again, I'm completely kidding.
I hope he watches this and thinks you're being serious.
How about the other characters? Do y'all have other questions for the other any other player or character?
I do have to add on to something that Austin just briefly said, was something about like being appreciative of how Glint was like accepted in the group, and I thought that like Glint's character was just so perfect for Dawn, because she was just like this caring person who just wanted to take care of everyone, and in walks this nervous little bundle of a child, and it's like, well, I have to take care of him now. This is my best friend, and I'm gonna have to take care of him.
It's like walking human-shaped anxiety pile.
I do remember that. Like before the game was starting, Marshall was like rolling to see like who we hadn't met before we start, and it was just like, oh well, it just happened that our characters met before, and it was like, well, I mean, here's a little bit about my character. What about your character? And then we were like, is it just me, or are these characters obviously best friends? Oh, Marshall, you good?
Yeah.
Was that a rave?
My lights went crazy for a second.
Yeah. It's just like the more we talked about it, the more we were like, yeah, we're absolutely just like best friends right now.
Mm-hmm. It was just perfect.
Yeah, it worked out very well.
And then we had the 2 cat bros.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it was kind of fun that JT's personality. Well, I say I've only met JT and Shane through our encounters here. I know Austin and Marshall real life in person, and so I've really enjoyed getting to see everybody's personalities as we flip back and forth between the characters we're playing, and JT's commitment to the beef character. It was something that I found so impressive that at the beginning I was thinking, oh well, I'm gonna see if Haukin can kind of throw him off stride, but I don't feel like JT necessarily broke. I think that JT and Beef are somehow like I don't know. I might for those of you who know him better than I do, you might say no, he was really just playing his character, but man, you had me. I was a believer. I mean, Beef was such a strong character that I did kind of play. I mean, Haukin really warmed up to Beef. I think at one point, instead of being antagonistic about he's some sort of gym bro, but I think Beef really stepped up with leadership. I mean, at one point we were just like, let's give Beef the Heartwood gym and let him be the new ruler of the Fate Court. We'll just kind of promote him, into some sort of, leadership role. But I really enjoyed
it. Was when Beef suggested cannibalism as a governing strategy that Haukin was like, yeah, that's something I can. No, that's actually really heartwarming to hear that you appreciated Beef so much, because I am huge into the role play aspect of D&D. Is my favorite part of it. The typical way that I make characters is that I start with the dumbest joke possible and I take it so seriously and I build a full character around it. And Beef's joke was just like, what if I made the most perfectly well-adjusted person? And so that was going to be his original whole thing, is that just like nothing fazed him, because if anything happened, he'd just be like, okay, I can talk about this in therapy, which transitioned into part of his character. But then he kind of just became like this neurotic gym bro who's working on himself. But I agree. I think that once Beef and Haukin became like friends, or maybe gained respect for one another, the interactions got so much better. But I think the secret sauce for Beef was just playing him as genuinely as possible. He is not at the gym to be better than anyone. He is not interested in strength to like show off. He just genuinely wants to be strong and help other people be strong.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. One thing I wanted to explore with Beef more was I've noticed like he wasn't very fond of Mr. Whiskers. And I noticed with the other animals too, and so like I wanted to explore that more.
Yeah, and that was something that just never really, one of the downfalls of a shorter campaign is that you don't get to explore everything that you want to. I would say that like, Beef and Dawn unfortunately didn't get as many interactions as they could have to kind of explore that relationship as well. But specifically, Beef has a phobia of small woodland critters.
Okay.
That I don't think, because I wrote Beef as a comedy character. Marshall said this is going to be a comedy campaign, and then it wasn't.
It had comedic elements.
It did. And so I just thought that would be a funny visual of like there's a giant 7'7" lion man. I think he was actually just 7 feet, but this lion man who is as wide as he is tall, who is terrified of chipmunks. And it came up a few times at the beginning, and I tried to stay true to it without drawing attention to it, because it just never became a thing. But yeah, that's where all that came from. I just wanted to give Beef like a funny visual that he could play with. I didn't realize that his funny visual would become bags of corn by session 2.
Oh yes, the corn.
Did anybody else have a kind of funny quirk that they wanted to play up, and either they felt that like they were successful with incorporating it to the character, like Dawn naming all of the different transformations that she did with some variation. I thought that was a great kind of callback every time. It's like, oh wait, we gotta come up with another name for this, or until the story changed, all your stories and the apple and stuff like that. I mean, there were some great kind of running gags that we all carried. I was wondering,
The frog.
The frog.
The frog.
I was so glad when I was able to come full circle. It was just like
I cried. I'm gonna cry again.
You are the frog. It was great. I do want to say I do love. I think the naming thing is more of a me thing. I just enjoy doing that. But probably the like main character quirk for Dawn was basically just, and the comedic aspect was just leaning as hard as I could into the naivety. and just like refusing to accept that it was a crime family and stuff like that, where it was just like, just at any moment it was like, well, we should just help them, or I'm sure they're nice, and stuff
I
like
love the
that.
juxtaposition for you and Glint, and trying to protect Glint from the full knowledge of everything, was something that was, I don't know, for me, I guess a little bit subtle, but played so well, like through the entirety, right up till the very end. It's like they're a crime family, right? What?
Yeah.
I just love those moments where it was like, what was it, the Tipplewinks with the goose? Was that? And it was just like, I had to stop and ask Marshall, what is their fake business that Dawn would think is the real thing they do? Because she doesn't know that they're a crime family.
That was so good. What about for Haukin? What was the thing for him that you felt like was the big running gag?
I tried to incorporate linguistically some the whole enlightenment thing, and trying to to stay true to that when it was obvious that there were things that were like the whole stuff doesn't really matter to me, but he was constantly like picking things up, and he wanted things in his box and collecting. I mean, some of it was curiosity, but there's this juxtaposition between material things, because I love the sword. When I got the sword, I was like, oh, cool. And so I went from a monk that was like, oh, I'm just going to use my fist, to, but man, this sword is super useful. So now it's my monk's weapon, and leaning into some of that stuff. So I felt kind of silly, but yeah, the juxtaposition between enlightenment and the detachment of everything, but then also I was really attached, and in the span of 4 short days, went from this loner to like, I would do anything for these guys, right? And I saw Glint change, and Beef is my cat brother, and we're doing, Dawn transformed me into all these things, and I was suddenly like, went from this loner to like super connected in 4 days. Yeah.
That is like a weird quirk of any D&D party, is that time in the real world will always be passing, like more time is passing in the real world than in the campaign. And so what is like a span of 8 hours in the campaign could be literal months in the real world. And
unless there's a time skip,
if like real people were to build relationships that fast, it would be codependent. But
or trauma bond.
Right.
Trauma bonding.
Definitely trauma bonding.
I love it.
So I do have a question that I kind of think we could go around and each of us answer this if we have an answer, because I'm curious if you were able to like replay the whole campaign, knowing with the experience that we have now, is there a change you would make to your character, or is there like something that you would want to, like a character trait that you would want to show off differently? I guess I can start while everyone. Oh, okay.
No. There's probably something that if I sat here and thought long enough, I'd come up with. But I think in the end, I'm just pretty happy with how it all shook out. So I'm just going no. I had fun with Dawn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very similar answer. Like, I really enjoyed Glint, and I really enjoyed all of the... I probably, if I had to change something, it probably would have been like, I guess some of the times whenever I was like role playing his anxiety and stuff, I probably would have manifested it a little bit differently here and there, but like for the most part, it probably would have stayed the same.
Really? Because
character. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, if you had all the information you have now and you got to remake Glint, I maybe would have raised that strength score a little bit.
Maybe.
He's gonna need it.
Right.
Sorry.
I mean, he grew up on a farm and a ranch, so he should have more muscles, right?
Yeah, but he stayed
He used
inside and read
magic.
books all day instead of
That's
going
true.
doing anything.
And he used his magic to do all of the things that he didn't want to do.
I think for my character, it was less about the character development, more about personal development. I really appreciate the fact that Marshall invited me on this campaign to begin with, because although I've played in the past, I am definitely not as experienced a player as I think all of you. You've played together and you played more and you know the rules, and so JT, you were saying that anytime I create a character, I'm like, oh yeah, this is like the third character I've ever created, to do something, and I wanted to do a monk, and so the kind of session zero stuff that Marshall helped me to. Once again, he did appreciation to Marshall. He I think does the GM thing the way that JT was saying. He's like, I don't want to trample on anybody, Jeff. If you want to be, an underwater basket weaving monk, we'll make that happen. Just tell me what you want to do, and we'll figure it out. But having played through it now and seeing some of the stuff that came up, I was like, oh well, I don't know if you guys, when you built your character, you're like, oh, I played this type of character. I played with somebody who's had that, so I know that in so many levels, kind of the metagaming, I know where my character's going to go. And for me, every level was like, ooh, what do monks get this level? And I'm looking, I was like, ooh, I get a feat, okay. And then I spent the time in between sessions trying to research, what feat would be best for monks, and of course everybody's got an opinion. So you go do a deep dive on the internet, you're going to find builds of different things. Some of them are like, well, this is a perfect build for this, and somebody else is like, this is the worst skill that this is broken anyhow. And I'm just like, what would be the most fun for role playing? So I think that it might have worked out a little bit differently for me just because I'm a more experienced player now. But man, I had a great time, and I really trusted on everyone else's grace about my lack of the mechanics of D&D, that if I tried to do something, if I had a question about something, everybody was just so generous and kind about what I could do or what I couldn't do, even suggestions of how I might do something. So it made the play experience really, really pretty wonderful for me for such a public and big campaign. You're like, this is a short campaign. This is the longest game I've ever played. So anyhow, it was a fun ride. But what would have been different for me was less about how my character did things than how I as a player experienced things. So
Love that.
And maybe as a message to take from that, if anyone's afraid of getting into D&D because you don't know the rules, you don't have to know the rules. That's the DM's job. Like, there's certain things you have to understand, but if you try to do something that you can't, no one's going to hate you for it.
And if the DM doesn't know, you try to get a friend like Shane.
I don't know that I can suggest trying to find a me. I can be very annoying.
Shane and I are pretty knowledgeable of the rules.
Very people who aren't overbearing with rules lawyering is always nice.
Yeah.
You always have to be willing to look for the balance, because there's knowing the rules is good, not knowing them isn't terrible or anything. But you also have to understand where the rubber meets the road, and sometimes it doesn't matter what the exact I can't believe I'm saying this. It doesn't matter what the exact technical rule is in a situation so much. But then on the other end, you can't just, unless everybody is okay with it, you can't just ignore all of the rules willy-nilly. So you have to find the balance that fits everybody who's playing in your game.
If you were to ignore all the rules completely, then we'd just be all the little kids on the playground being like, no, my superpower is this power. Your superpower is that power. That's just how it works. My power beats your power.
But like, you forget that my power makes me immune to that kind of power.
But I got this new item that says no. That's what it would be.
Marshall and I've had this conversation before with the baby voices and all.
Yeah. I think maybe a way of looking at it is you have to learn the rules before you can know when to break them.
Mm-hmm.
But I will share my answer to the question I initially posed of like what we would do differently. Because for me, and I think this is just an aspect of Beef's character that maybe was a level of complexity too much, which is really strange to say about Beef. But just like one thing too much for this campaign. I'm not sure how much mileage I got out of him being a pacifist. It felt like something that I said a lot more often than I actually showed. And when I was talking to Marshall about it, from the very beginning, the whole thing was he is a functional pacifist. He wants, like, ideally, he would never have to use violence, but if it's to protect people, he will. And I feel like there were times that was made clear, but I have to wonder throughout the whole campaign if Beef's character would have benefited from just trimming that personality trait and letting other things shine in those places.
I thought I noticed it happen like 4 or 5 times, and like it was really big, whereas hesitancy to do this thing, as it popped up a lot in the library, and then with the goose and stuff like that, where it was like, I do not want to hurt this person, but they're attacking me and my friends, or these people I know right now.
Yeah,
These
but
people that
I can understand
and go.
I really appreciated it, the Beef's pacifism, and like there are parts of me that also like I've been exploring pacifism a lot, and it's like part like his pacifism really speaks to me a lot, and so I really liked the way that you did it, because it seemed like I could see that the thought that you put into it, and so I was always looking for those signs, and uh so there were times where Glint, especially before emo Glint was a thing, Glint was also very much like he didn't like violence either. He wouldn't have called himself a pacifist, but a lot of those he really looked up to Beef for that. I don't think I also don't think like Glint was very vocal about like his feelings towards his friends other besides Dawn, but like those were one of the things that Glenn really appreciated before.
Oh dang, that's huge. Honestly, knowing that changes that completely, because it's like knowing that there's that connection between Beef and Dawn, or Beef and Glint, that even if it was never explored, that is something huge.
Mm-hmm. And then had a terrible day, and then was no longer a pacifist. You cut somebody's hand off, like what?
While you were pursuing pacifism, I studied the blade.
Well, I think that Beef's pacifism even affected the storyline in questioning some of the, hey, what's the fake court doing? And if they're holding absolute power, how are they, are they doing it for the people, or is power corrupting like it does in so many other things? And just even some of the philosophical discussion about who are we even going to give the heart? I mean, the crossing and the double crossing, that's where it felt like the Ocean's 11 stuff to me. It's like, at one point, I was wondering, it's like, who's going to end up with the Heartwood jewel? Are we going to install Beef, or are we going to give it to Callum Jeltor, or are we going to give it to Lysanthe, or are we going to, who's really the good guy here? At one point, I wasn't even sure. So
funny that Beef was even an option.
The biggest thing I'm curious about for everyone's character, not yourself, but you yourself are your character, is how close was anyone to being like, oh, Lysanthe, or oh, Cal, or no, we should just definitely kill everyone, or anything like that.
I was thinking like you shut down the idea of like, if we destroyed it, the power would still exist, and like eventually it would be, recaptured. And it's like if that what twist wasn't there, then for me it was like no brainer, just get rid of it. Like no need for this power to exist. But the unfortunate reality was that it did exist and was going to, no matter what we chose to do with it. instead of just spread it out as much as we can while making it still viable, as a deterrent to bad people.
Mhm.
I know I was like I had no idea who to trust, and it was just clear that I shouldn't trust Lysanthier. Like, dude was too shady.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, it's him or Cal, and it's not him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that's
I think-
where Haukin eventually got as well. Is just that Lysanthier was too snake oily, salesman-y.
Mhm.
I think that would have been the biggest twist, is if he had actually been a good guy.
Hey, I'm sure he
I-
thought he was a good guy.
I think Beef was
If I would've-
Dawn.
If I would have thrown in one last twist of actually Lysanthier being the good guy and Cal just fully tricked y'all, I would
my
have
gosh.
died. That would have been funny. That was the whole idea of part of the game for me, was like, I want there to be way too many just gotchas or extra twist or
So it
something
is the
else
Rick
that
and
you might
Morty
have
heist
missed.
episode.
Yeah, there's always more.
Yeah, I feel like the only problem I could have seen with that was because Cal could not go onto the island at all.
Mhm.
And so, like, the times where we caught Lysanther, like, plotting and doing sneaky stuff, it was like that we knew that was him.
Mhm.
But it would have been cool if Cal had found a way to get onto the island.
Yeah.
That would have been really cool.
I loved it.
To answer your question, I think you would have to have asked each version of Glint, and you would have a very different answer.
Every day we got a different glint.
Right? First Glint, terrified, had been like, I don't care, just get it. I don't want to be here. Just get it away from me. He would have given it to the first person he saw.
Here you go, Frank.
Right.
Oh no!
Not break.
Frank would have blown up everything.
Would have been better with Lysanthier.
Probably. But like, emo Glint, or Oathbreaker Glint, I think he probably would have. He probably would have either kept it for himself or destroyed it. Because he wouldn't. He at that point he didn't trust anyone except for like Dawn. But then Dawn was
gets the
also
Heartwood jewel.
Dawn was also going through dusky moments too. They could have ruled and been the new Archfey. But then redeemed Glints, I think still would have chosen Cal or Beef.
I love that Beef was an option.
Right.
I feel like
Fully for the cannibalism.
we've made enough jokes at this point that I feel like if we ever were to do like a sequel, season 2 to Heartwood Heist, it would have to open with like Beef running for president of the Heartwood.
Oh, Beef would already be mayor. Beef would just
Yeah.
be the mayor.
Good.
I think given the option, Haukin definitely would have tried to put it in the box of deconstruction just to see what would happen.
I would have loved to have seen that.
It would have been some interesting roles for.
I think we would have
I
seen
don't know
Marshall
how-
just blue screen of death live.
Just put like a 9,000 years on the timer or something.
You
Haukin
all
would have
will
waited.
be dead.
We just would have meditated to it.
The only thing left would have been Beef's muscles.
Hmm.
The only thing.
Well, that does remind me that I don't know, I don't think it really came up very much, but we did come up with like rumors for our characters beforehand
Yep.
that, you know,
All right.
some of us
Right.
we've heard of some of the rumors of some of the other characters, and I do think, JT, do you remember any of Beef's? Because they were basically all Chuck Norris jokes.
Yeah, I don't remember the specific ones, but I remember that because Marshall wanted like them to be wanted some of them to be lies to add a little bit of flavor. And I was like, I don't think Beef would ever lie about this stuff. And so the joke for me, the way I did it was they were all just Chuck Norris jokes, but about Beef. So stuff like, you know, Beef is counted to infinity twice.
I have them all pulled up right now, actually. Beef can punch a bird out of the sky.
Which
Beef
actually is
doesn't need to
true.
Yeah.
Beef doesn't need to breathe. His body regenerates from sheer willpower. Beef counts as 3 people, 1 for himself and 2 for his mane. Beef can move at light speed if he wants to, but doesn't out of respect for the gods. And Beef once peed so hard that he created the Grand Canyon equivalent.
That one was also true.
And then the last one that no one wound up getting because it was an extra one. Zero once tried to divide by Beef.
Oh yeah. That was a good one.
And JT sent me a lot more than that, but he was like, these are the top ones. And I have everyone else's. They were all good.
Let me just go through
I loved
them.
them all.
I do, unfortunately, I don't have too much time left, just for personal reasons. So, Marshall, is there like a specific way that you'd like to maybe close out today?
I wanted to ask some questions, but I can't think of them right now. One of them that came to my mind was like feats. Was there a feat that y'all wanted? But we don't need to go into that.
All of them.
I loved all of these. I loved all of these answers, and I loved playing with all of you. And this was a blast of a game. This is one of the few games that I have been able to come to the conclusion of, and I love it. It's always fun to finish a D&D game. It's very rewarding, even if it feels long at times. And I suggest everyone give D&D a chance. It's a lot of fun. You get to play with all of your friends and make new friends. And it's just great. But that's all for me. I was the Dungeon Master, and I am handing over a a remote that I'm saying is a torch to JT.
And I am accepting the torch as
Other direction,
this little
Marshall.
toy that I have. Oh, Marshall, other direction.
I mean, now you're
There
just
you go.
reaching through Austin's face.
I'll pass it.
Well, JT is
Everyone
like
pass.
too far away. You can't. He's not actually adjacent to you.
No!
He's the only one that
No.
isn't adjacent to your video.
But yeah, if you can't tell, the next campaign, which is going to be even longer than this one, I'll be DMing. We're already getting started for it. I'm very excited. So tune in. I don't know if we've dropped the name of it, but I'm going to do it right here.
We have.
Well, I'm going to drop it again here. Tune into the Mantis Project coming soon on Owlbear Odysseys.
Thank you
Bye,
all
everybody.
for joining us on this first Odyssey. Bye-bye, everyone.